Hi, folks. Welcome back. Today, I'm sharing a conversation I recently had with Kai Schwemmer, a political commentator and campus speaker focused on culture, debate, and public discourse. In this interview, we talked about my background in online commentary, how that shaped me as a creator, and why I ultimately decided to run for the U.S. House of Representatives in California's 30th District, Adam Schiff's old seat. We also get into faith, culture, media, and what it's actually like stepping into politics in a deep blue district while refusing to compromise your core principles. This is a candid conversation about conviction, accountability, and what it means to walk away from the algorithm and towards something harder, but more honest. Let's get into it.
What should I call you? Should I call you Deaf Noodles? Should I call you Mr. Feitosa? Is that how you pronounce it, by the way?
Yeah, Feitosa.
Okay. And
So it could be Feitosa, could be Deaf Noodles, could be Dennis, whatever you feel like calling me, really. I can go by so many different things.
all right. Okay. Well, hey, you're a congressional candidate, if correct.
Yes.
Perfect. You're
in
filed?
The 30th. Yes, so already filed. I got
good.
all the signatures I needed to be on the ballot. It's the 30th Congressional District. That's Adam Schiff's old seat.
Oh, okay. Okay. Awesome. Very exciting stuff. So obviously, we're going to get into all that. We're going to get into some of the contentions in the race in the region, get your take on a lot of things. But I'll call you then Mr. Feitosa. So there's more professionalism.
You don't have to be so formal. Just call me Dennis. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, Dennis. Well, we like the setup. And for those who aren't aware, before the congressional run, you were a commentary. I don't know if you would call yourself a commentary YouTuber. Is that the group you would place yourself in?
It was more like satirical commentary.
Mm-hmm.
I talked a lot about especially during the pandemic, a lot of influencer related news, like current events, like that kind of stuff. But yeah, for the last few years, I've been doing more like straight commentary.
Okay, sweet. All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's where I originally had heard about you. From is from that sphere, because I've got a couple buddies who are in the
Oh
sphere.
yeah,
But
back in the day.
yes, back in the day. Admittedly, I can't claim stolen valor. I can't say I'm a day one, but I would hear your name mentioned.
Yeah.
And luckily, I don't recall whether it was for good or for bad. So there's a total blank slate in my mind. I'm sure,
Bro,
as with everything, there's a mixed bag.
Some of that stuff, like most of the content I was making, like between 2020 and 2022, was so cringe. I look back on it, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like,
Well, that's actually one of the first questions I wanted to get into. Just knowing that you come from this commentary background, definitely just whatever it may be, producing media, not in like a political sense necessarily, or not in an electoral way.
yeah.
So how do you think that has driven you to where you are now? What's kind of your approach been to it as now you're campaigning? Obviously, your name that you go by, on your social media is still Deaf Noodles, which I think isn't a bad thing. That's how people know you. But obviously, it carries with it some baggage. I felt the exact same way when I started getting into Utah politics. So, kind of, what's your whole view of it? Where do you want to go? Kind of merging these two sides of yourself.
Yeah. So I think, you can't really separate yourself from who you are, especially on the internet when you have as long of a history as I have. I mean, my history on the internet goes as far back as like 2014. Like my first viral video was in 2015, actually. It was a video I made for Univision. It was a video about, my background being of a Brazilian background. My parents are from Brazil. I was born in New Jersey. I'm first generation American, but it was about, culturally, like what it's like to be Brazilian. That was like the first viral video. Then I did a follow-up for them, which was similar in style. And, ever since then, I've been really involved in making content of that matter. And around 2020, that's when the commentary aspect of it started really popping off. And, I've kind of embraced, because there were ups and downs, and I've embraced that journey. It's part of who I am, and I think it's also part of what a lot of people experienced, because especially the 2020 to 2022 era, I think that was really peak woke, and I think it helped a lot of people. Like, at least for me, like I'm Catholic, and I felt like my empathy was abused during that time. I was really driven into embracing certain things that really didn't match you know, my my faith. It didn't match, you know, what I practiced going to church, what I thought about, what I saw in the scriptures. But wokeness essentially weaponized that to a degree that I think not just myself, a lot of other Christians that I talk to, and I talk to not just, not obviously I'm Catholic, not just Catholics. I know a lot of Protestants, I know some Mormons as well, and I mean I think a lot of Christians felt that. Yeah, good. Shout out to John Dorian, by the way. Thank you so much, John. He's one of fellow Mormon.
Yes, sir. We love the Mormons, the members of the Church of Jesus
Yes,
Christ of Latter-day Saints. Truly are our
yes,
greatest allies.
huh?
They are our greatest allies.
Yes,
I'm a huge fan. I'm LDS myself, so that's why I'm glazing a little bit. If you didn't know before, but yes.
yes. Well, I had a suspicion. No, I knew you were a Mormon. But I think a lot of Christians, because we come from that, we come from that culture of forgiveness, of trying to understand the other perspective, of acceptance, and I think to a certain extent that's been weaponized against us to accept different things that don't necessarily relate to our principles and how we view the world. And I think you see that reaction playing out in real time right now in the last year and a half, of people now moving away from that like hippy dippy version of Christ into like, no, no, no. Jesus was actually a hard ass. He was actually a badass. He's a guy who walked into the temple and flipped the tables, right? He's a guy, like, it's not easy to walk with Jesus. It's not just about accepting everything and everybody. It's about, understanding that it's not easy to walk with Christ and that it comes with demands,
Mhm.
right? So I think that my journey on the internet kind of reflects me, because I've always been Christian, but it reflects me kind of like, in essence, moving closer to God,
Mhm.
and being in a position where I was making these, for lack of a better word, these like super dumb, lowbrow videos, with like the lowest form of jokes that you could imagine, just pure ad hominems, and talking about some of the most uh, uh, empty sort of things that are happening on the internet, to kind of like reconnecting with Christ, and reconnecting with a purpose and journey that He had given me, and finding myself then in a position of like, okay, so how am I going to affect the world? And ultimately, getting involved in grassroots politics here in Los Angeles and seeing how that system in and of itself is broken,
Mhm.
and then thinking, how can I change this state that's like by far the bluest state,
Mhm.
right? It's the district that I'm in. It was D+23 before this last special election in November. Now it's D+37, meaning that for every 37 Democrats, there's one Republican. So it's an uphill battle, but it's you get called to do certain things, and what I believe is like, and what's been kind of shown in my life is the longer and the more that I resist it, the kind of the worse it gets. Like the quicker you just are obedient to what you're being shown is what you have to do.
Mhm.
The faster things kind of unravel. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. The story of Jonah, right, comes to mind, where he's called to,
Yeah.
preach to the people of Nineveh, and obviously rejects that call, and suffers in the belly of a whale for some time because of it.
Yep.
And then, from that, there's a whole different lesson there that I like to get into. But, this example of Jonah, where, even at the end of the day, there's still people who, despite even heeding calling, sometimes they go into it for the wrong reason, and you end up with Jonah who's like jaded. And that's not the goal. We want to be able to not only heed the call, but to ourselves be transformed as we do it, to the point where we're not upset with God because, He didn't kill all of them, or something to that effect, right?
Exactly.
So I
Well,
want
that's
to.
why it's His will be done, right?
Yes,
Thy will be
exactly.
done. It's not at the end of the day. It's your will, God. And I think it's a good thing. It helps you separate your ego from like being attached to results,
Yes.
right? Because
Yep.
ultimately you're serving Him. So
Yeah. No, I
I could go
100%
all day
agree.
about this.
Well, and that's actually, we got a good point, or a good question that I was going to ask here in the chat from Utah FP Doc, who says, how did a good Jersey boy end up in Cali? And I wanted to ask that, and then also kind of with your physical journey, also describe a little bit, because you've started to mention it, that journey with, being Catholic. Were you always, church going? Were you one of these CEO Christmas Easter only Catholics? How's that been for you? And then how does that correlate to kind of your progress politically?
Of course. So I have a really unusual story in the sense that my parents were here on a work visa. I was born in New Jersey. My dad was finishing his degree at NYU, and he was working as a CPA at Deloitte. And when their visa expired, instead of staying here illegally, they moved back home. They did what you're supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up growing up in Brazil up until I was 12, and then I was sent to boarding school in Florida. I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, for many years. I went to college there. I love Florida. And then after that, I moved to New York, where I worked for about 10, 12 years. And then through work, I ended up finding myself in Los Angeles. I got a job offer out here in 2015, funny enough. I've been here ever since, and kind of just building along. I've always kind of I worked behind the scenes, mostly doing videos. Like my first job out of college, it was during the Great Recession. I was touring with rappers, shooting music videos and shooting stuff back when this is like 2009, when YouTube was like in its infancy,
Yeah.
and you had to be like a lunatic to post content online.
Yes.
So
What a time it
that,
was.
huh?
What a time it was, man. Now,
Oh,
now,
it was
now
so
you
strange.
can't post online. Everybody's a lunatic, and it's just normal now. It's not a
Yeah.
select group now. Everybody's infected.
Yeah, the lunacy has normalized.
Yes.
And as far as my being Catholic, I'm a cradle Catholic. I grew up in the Catholic Church, going to church. I did have a moment where I kind of moved away and was kind of like seeking, other things. And I read about Buddhism. I read about Hinduism. Nowadays, it's like I see that period as like such a waste. I was looking for answers in other places when I had the answer right in front of me. But I am so grateful that God was patient with me through that time. And my returning back was, I think, around like 2012. I actually got a job working for the Catholic Church in New York. And I used to direct their TV broadcasts. I used to direct Daily Mass, St. James Church in Brooklyn. Many years, I would just go for, and direct it. The majority of the audience they used to watch at the time, were people who are usually at the hospital or can't go to Mass for some reason. And there's like something really meaningful about that. You're helping people who can no longer make their way to church, be with Christ, So
Yeah.
I
No.
did that for many years. And then, I had a very specific moment. It was kind of, I think 2015, I keep going back to 2015, but that was like kind of a year where a lot of things changed for me. I had been married at that time, and I ended up getting a divorce that year. And, my family lives abroad. I'm here by myself, basically. Have been here most of my life by myself. And it was in that moment that I was like, it was kind of terrifying because I had nobody to fall back on. I lost all of my friends in New York because they all chose my now ex-wife.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm just walking around town and I'm like, I am completely alone. And then in the middle of that, I had a realization. I was like, actually, I'm not alone. I have God. like, so that ended up starting a new era of this journey of like just kind of meditating for a few years what it meant to walk with God, and that I was never alone. And it kind of took me a few years to actually just have that, like, understand that like I'm not actually alone. It's just so strange that nowadays it's like natural to think that he's like always with me, but back then it felt like strange. Like I'm actually not alone. He's always here, and he's watching me. And obviously there are demands that come with it, but he's like he's here.
Yeah.
you
No,
know, I,
that's huge. I think, there's man, there was a talk given by a general authority, one of the apostles in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who talks about he's actually Brazilian. His name is Elder Suarez. This guy's
Oh,
awesome. Yeah, very
yeah.
good. And he describes kind of this idea of finding kind of the grandness, the grandeur in these things that seem mundane. And I
Yeah.
like the way that you describe that, because I think, especially if you are familiar with faith, if you've been religious your whole life, there are very basic truths that you kind of take for granted until you really
Mm.
need them, until you really start to think that, God is present. He really does know me. I am his son. He really is listening to my prayers. And that, once you start realizing just how incredible those things are, it truly enriches your faith a lot. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah, faith is a big part of my life. I don't think I'd be anywhere near where I'm at, or I don't think I honestly, it's just such a grounding thing. It's just I always say, and I always say, whenever people ask me about anything, I'm like, my identity is like fully centered on Christ. It's like Jesus first, and obviously country next, and seeing how I can serve people in the best way. I think I feel like unfortunately, culturally, our country has moved so far away from that,
Hmm.
and that's part of the reason too. These are a lot of the conversations that we have in our group. We have a solid like America First, like very much like Christian group within the LAGOP. It's like about it's growing every day. It's about a dozen guys now, but we talk a lot about and we meditate a lot on the cultural and spiritual decay, especially seeing it in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, it's like everywhere for you to see.
Yeah.
You just walk outside, especially in Hollywood, and it really it forces you to get even closer to God. But then every step you take, you kind of like, especially in politics where you're hyper scrutinized for everything. You kind of you're very meditative about it, right? Um, so it's really truly strange times. I mean,
Yeah. No, no, big time. And that's actually, I think that's a perfect segue into kind of the meat and potatoes of the discussion. We've tackled a bit of the faith, and I'm in
yeah.
the same boat where I don't like separating them out too much. But I wanted your
Mhm.
take kind of, it sounds like, your faith is doing a lot to inspire some of the questions and concerns that you have running your
Mhm.
campaign, maybe some of the stuff that inspired you. What do you kind of see? How are you running this campaign? And what ways would you like to shape California? What are kind of the things that you're focusing on?
Yeah. So, I when I first started setting up the campaign, I did a few surveys. I talked to several people to kind of get the temperature and see what issues were affecting people in LA and in California. And as we've moved along with the campaign, and this was back in July, right, that I initially started putting the campaign together. As we've
And
moved,
remind us when you moved there originally. Was that pre or
so
post
that was
pandemic?
2015.
2015.
That
Okay,
was
perfect.
2015. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So we
Also,
as we've moved forward with the campaign, we kind of started noticing other issues that we were going to have to address, either in parallel to this, or they were things that were going to eventually have to be addressed regardless. Some of the situations happening within the party, I think within the LAGOP specifically, they're the kind of things that they're very representative of the cultural rot that has taken LA, right? For example, when so I initially put my campaign together, like I said, based on a few different issues that I saw, basic stuff that most Americans care about now, which is like cost of living, public safety, and the homelessness situation in LA specifically, which is out of control, and the corruption around it. Right, there's a lot of corruption in Los Angeles, folks. If you think Minneapolis and Minnesota was bad, California is out of control. It would take a decade of Nick Shirley's every single day exposing this state for us to even, you know, hit the tip of the iceberg. But in that process, we realized that there is real institutional rot and corruption within the LAGOP. And this came almost right out the gate because the last person who ran for this seat, the last Republican who ran for this seat, he is now the vice chair, the second vice chair at the LAGOP. His name's Alex Balekian. He's currently running for Glendale City Council, and he's a gay Republican, which I don't know how you can conserve anything and be a gay Republican. Just seems like an oxymoron to me. But anyway, uh, within a month of me announcing, we had this meeting. I was looking for advice, and this was the advice he gave me. And I'm going to give it to you almost verbatim. And I've been telling as many people about this because I want people to understand just the level of rot. So he asked me like my position on abortion and on marriage, and I said, look, I'm pro-life. I believe that life starts at conception. In fact, actually, I think it starts even before. I think it starts at the choice of you laying down with somebody, and you're laying down for a procreative act. But let's just say scientifically, the consensus is conception, right? Uh, and as far as marriage, I don't believe in the word traditional marriage. There's only one kind of marriage, and that's it. It's just what's been given to us by God. It's that covenant. Uh, so, he said, well, have you ever thought about running as the first pro-choice, pro-gay marriage Republican? It would do so well here in Hollywood. You would probably get all the old gays who fantasize about converting a straight guy like you into a gay to donate to you. And I'm like, Alex, thank you. And I just opened the door and I was like, that was it. The conversation was over. Because he's effectively asking me to prostitute myself for donations, right? He's effectively asking me, like, right out the gate for me to give up my principles so I can go out and fundraise. And I think that's part of the reason why the Republican Party has become so weak in California. There are so many people who are just used to losing. It's not the same party that it was when Reagan was around. Reagan was from California, right? It's definitely not the same party. It has been considerably weakened, and the Republicans that are currently in place are usually former Democrats or they're libertarians like Alex, who's very socially liberal, is just fiscally conservative, so he's only, Republican in name only.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have this idea that the party should move towards social conservatism. And there are a lot of us who disagree with that. We want to conserve what the founding principles of this country, right? Which this country is a Christian country. It was founded on Christian principles, biblical principles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was very disappointing to get that out the gate. It was actually kind of infuriating, and ever since then I've been kind of just moving along and seeing that sort of institutional rot within the party is actually much larger than just that issue. The party itself has been aligning itself with it's called the gay. They're the gay lobby, basically. It's the log cabin Republicans.
I was about to say that, the log cabin Republicans. Yes, sir. I mean, we actually have right now Scott Pressler in Utah.
Really?
Yeah, he's here right now. And this is the thing where, electorally, he is excellent. He's a good signature gatherer. He's a good grassroots guy. But eventually, you do have that qualm where it's like, look, am I going to say that the electoral victory is worth sacrificing everything in order to get to that point? Then, what are we actually winning on? What is the platform that we have gotten to the office with if we have sacrificed everything along the way? So, this is a big concern all across the country. And it is difficult when you're put in that position of, look, either we lose kind of a grassroots initiative drive because there's a lot of Republicans that are, asleep at the wheel, or we have to say that the only really effective people are like, 5 really rich gay guys, right? And so the purse strings is obviously a big part of that. Yeah. But yes, the gay lobby, continue.
What I would say, and this is something that, comes up a lot, obviously, what I would say is anybody can be a Republican. I don't mind that. You can be a Republican, you can vote as a Republican, and you can be a part of the party, you can donate, all that stuff. The only thing is, there's a limit to who is responsible for the soul of the party.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get to define the principles of the party, which is what they tried to do in California specifically. They tried to redo the entire platform as a socially liberal platform. It got shut down, thank God. So then Rick Grinnell went on the national level and changed it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they had to reverse engineer it. And this is still a fight that's going on, to change it back to what it was, to these social conservative values, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even beyond that, I mean, coming back from Amfest, you were there at Amfest. We saw each other there.
Did I see you there?
Yeah, we went to that James O'Keefe party.
That's what it was. That's what okay, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Now I remember. I was gonna say, I'm like, I'm trying to remember which night it was. Okay, perfect. There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
There we
yeah.
go.
So,
Which,
the
by
thing
the
at
way, I
AmFest.
want to qualify that because to the audience, look, I was not watching the James O'Keefe strippers. I was not watching the MAGA strippers. I did not enter the establishment. I was outside hanging out, chatting with cool people, just for the record. But yeah, go
Yes,
on.
there was an outside area. Uh, so, um, at AmFest, it became obvious that there is a rift in the party, right? That right now that we're watching the end of MAGA, right? And we're watching the this very motivated and young America First coalition really sweep in. And it's a thing. Even if people aren't America First necessarily and don't have the terminology for it and don't know where it comes from or what the principles are, there is that feeling that America should come first. That we're just sick of seeing our money being sent abroad to fight foreign wars or to fund foreign governments. We just want to take care of Americans. And I see that actually on the streets when I'm door knocking in Burbank or in Glendale and parts of my district. I see both Democrats, independents. I see, a lot of Republicans. That's a very real concern. They want the money to stay here,
Mhm.
right? Um, that said, that considering that rift, there was a specific incident that happened, and I won't even qualify it as an incident. This was this. So we had this debate booth, right, where we were debating people, and anybody could stop by and debate us, and we would have different prompts go up. At one point, I put up that Ben Shapiro is, and I don't know if I can say this word, but I said Ben Shapiro is the F slur. I'll let you fill that
I
out.
look. I don't know if Kick allows it. This is my first time back on Kick, so I appreciate the safe bet. For the record, slurs generally fine. We try to stay away from swear words, but I appreciate the
Yeah, yeah,
caution.
yeah. Yeah. So I said I put we well it was somebody that was with us put that up, and I debated that because I thought that what Ben Shapiro did on that first day was just like it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just went after everybody, just created this really negative tone to everything, and it all became about all this inter-party drama when the reality was there. It's unavoidable, it's unstoppable. You're not going to change the movement that's happening in the party because it's a reaction to what we're seeing actively happening in the country, and it's a feeling that's shared by most Americans right now. It's a very tangible, real thing, right? So in the middle of all that, I'm debating somebody, and then I just step away for a second, and I see one of my friends who's advising my campaign. He's debating somebody who's pretty high up in the LA GOP. She is actually part of the Jewish
Mhm.
she's a Jewish liaison for the LA GOP.
Do we get names?
Uh, huh?
Do we get names?
Yeah, Elizabeth Barkelhana, that's her name.
Okay,
So he's
Barcelona.
he's talking with her, and she is but he's actually more debating this guy Eyal Jacoby. Have you heard of him?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, yeah. On
He's big
Twitter, I've
on
seen
X.
him.
He's got
Yep,
like 380,000 followers on X. You
yep,
watch his timeline, it's just straight up Israeli propaganda all day.
yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he's a former IDF soldier too. So to me, his timeline is just an intelligence operation, really.
Mhm.
But anyway, so I see that the conversation is getting kind of heated. So I approach them, and I don't want them like fighting each other. I know both of them relatively well. I know Elizabeth and my friend. Uh, so that I try to like be a peacemaker, and I go. And I try to, I go to shake hands with Eyal, and I notice his hand is like wet and cold. He's like angry. He's like agitated and flustered. And I'm like, okay, this is not going good. This guy's really mad. I like actually mad.
Cortisol
And
spiking. Worst mistake.
yeah, cortisol spike beyond imagination. Uh, so immediately when I engage them, like I become his target. And the next 30 minutes is just this guy like rattling off talking points and like everything that you probably already heard. Being spouted off by like the Laura Loomers of the world and like just your usual propaganda. And anyway, the conversation ends. They say they have to go to Shabbat dinner. And they leave. We go do our own thing. And we come back to LA, and this conversation starts that I'm an anti-Semite around the party. And I hear that this is coming from Elizabeth. She's going around telling everybody that I'm an anti-Semite, right? Uh, and then I start hearing that they're looking to run somebody against me. The party, as a result of that, is looking to find somebody to run against me now because I dared to criticize. I didn't even criticize Israel, honestly. I criticized Ben Shapiro,
Mhm.
and that made me an anti-Semite. So the party is looking to split votes, and from what I've heard from different people in the party, they're looking to they're recruiting a gay Jew to run against me.
Perfect. Perfect.
Couldn't be more establishment, right? Couldn't fit
Yes.
more like the. So, I mean, that's all. That goes to show you the rot that's happening within the party,
Mhm.
right? That it wasn't like, and look, just to add more context, the LA GOP is not doing well financially. They're very, very stripped of resources. They're having a hard time getting enough candidates for other seats. They're about like I think 2,000 different seats, offices, public offices in the LA County area that they could be running people in. That's not just congressional seats that go state assembly, state senate,
Mhm.
community college board, education board, all sorts of seats that they could be finding and recruiting people for, right? Uh, but now they're trying to recruit somebody to run against me because I guess I upended their narrative or I pissed off the wrong people
Mhm.
for questioning something.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, that's
so
that establishment pushback. It's a good sign, right? You get the most flat cannon fire right when you're above the target. But I see that a lot. You have this kind of entrenched GOP, and then as you described, this kind of rising America first. Certainly, very skeptical of Israel. And I think
yeah,
now, and this is something I wanted to ask you. I think one of the big concerns now is that you almost see it become like that in and of itself. The conversation about Israel has kind of hit the mainstream so dramatically, so significantly that now there's almost a concern, at least it's a concern of mine and of a couple other people, that this in and of itself is a strategy to kind of derail things, either to, make the party look ridiculous through some of the things, somebody like a Candace Owens has said. And I don't know what you feel about her, but whatever the case is, she's huge on YouTube, and it seems
yeah.
inexplicable that she still has retained her platform given some of the stuff she said. Um,
Well, I think she's controlled opposition of sorts, but I'll let you finish before I get into those
Yeah, yeah.
theories.
Well, and that's a little bit of the question, and it's an opportunity for you as well to talk about kind of how you got there and what your whole take on it is. Knowing that
Mhm.
there is this huge movement, I think a lot of people what they want to know is how you come about during that process. There's this huge caution now that there are people who understand that it is a grift. At this point on Twitter, on X, if you're posting something that's anti-Israel, that is guaranteed engagement. And so I think there is
Mhm.
some suspicion that people have now, just as much for like, Israeli operatives or people who are posting super Zionist content, just as much as there is now with people who are posting anti-Zionist content. So for
Mhm.
you, how was it that became something you were aware of? What space does it occupy as a part of your campaign? And I suppose what would I'll kind of give you the second question afterwards, but yeah, if you wouldn't mind just going ahead on that point, because
Of
I know
course.
that's
No,
something people ask.
and that's absolutely fair to have those questions because there is money to be made. Like you mentioned, Candace Owens, there are other people as well who their entire social media presence is just them going after the Jews, basically. And it's
Yes.
like anything is like the Jews. It becomes almost like a parody or a cartoon.
Mhm.
Uh,
And
and
I would add, I think they're not even like these people are not ideologically right wing. They
mhm,
are they would flip on people who are ideologically right wing if those
mhm.
people stopped parroting like this one answer to every question.
Of course. Well, for me, I got to be honest with you. I'm actually pretty close with a lot of the big Jewish donors in the party. I was relatively neutral as far as Israel goes and as far as Jewish influence in government until probably towards the end of last year. Seeing the pushback, I mean, I when I went to Amfest, I don't think I was as critical of their influence in our government as I currently am. It was more of like yes, I knew there were these criticisms. I was kind of following along. I recognized that what they were doing in Gaza was extreme and it was absolutely inhumane, right? And a genocide, 100%. Now, seeing their reaction to just light criticism, like just criticizing a Jewish person and having there are literal articles that are written about me being an anti-Semite because of that. And seeing the reaction within the party as well, I was like, okay, there's a problem here. Like I can't the fact that I can't express these ideas even lightly, and I'm already getting this sort of pushback where I'm being sidelined in the party, where I'm having my character assassinated because I dared to, level this criticism. There's a problem here, you know? So, and the problem's institutional. And to an effect, it's also cultural. And then obviously you go down that path, and then you start noticing all this other stuff, and you start seeing, okay, so this ties to that, this ties to that, and all of a sudden it's easy to go down that path, like you said, of like then blaming everything on them, but uh, that's not the point with this. The point is to have a party that represents America first. That's it. I want the party to represent American interests, and seeing how you can't even question within the party our involvement with Israel or question a Jewish person, that shouldn't be the status quo.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Big time. So that you would say it's something that occurred more naturally as you became more involved with politics.
yeah, and it happened more as like my own shift happened more as a result of the pushback that I got. Because I mean, look, if they hadn't pushed back the way that they did, like, and I'm saying in terms of the Jewish personalities that reacted the way that they did,
Yeah.
probably would be at the exact same spot that I was before. I'd be relatively neutral and thinking, yeah, Israel, not that we should keep sending our money down there, but they're a friendly country,
Yeah.
and I just want to be able to voice concerns without having my life destroyed.
Yeah. And I,
You know?
I think that is the sentiment a lot of people obviously are sharing. And that's certainly, I think now that is the mainstream position. And so the big thing is to kind of realize where that comes from. Because there are people, who, if they're not as interested in the electoral politics, they are interested in just that one issue. And that one issue becomes the brand. And it is something that, yeah, like you and I were talking about with Candace Owens, it's a counter op. It is totally like a gay op in order to make people with those criticisms just look even more ridiculous. But I got one more question for you. And then we'll dive into some of the questions. Guys, if you want to ask Mr. Deaf Noodles Dennis a question, feel free to super chat, power chat, or YouTube, wherever you guys want to send it. I'll be able to read through all of them. But yeah, so this is kind of my biggest question. I'm interested, obviously, in politics. I'm doing more of the commentary. But one of the big things is realizing kind of the political game. And every decision is intentional. And I think especially when you come from a commentary, or just like when you're politically engaged but not electorally engaged, which is definitely different. You're watching the news cycle, but you're not campaigning or interning. You look at politics a different way. Every national headline becomes the thing you're most interested in. And oftentimes, there's people who don't even know the things happening in their community. It becomes very different when you run to office and you talk to the people who live where you're campaigning. So I guess my question, and this goes maybe to politics in general, is about why decide to run in this district, which is an overwhelmingly Democrat district. What is your end goal? What's like your best case scenario? Where do you intend to go after the campaign? And if there was a conversation, what was kind of the decision-making process of running for this congressional seat in the U.S. House of Representatives instead of just at a more local precinct or county level?
Of course. So part of the idea is so let me start. There were a few different questions there.
Yes.
So why this district? So I live in Hollywood. My office is in Hollywood. I'm here every day. I'm part of the assembly district that covers most of Glendale. And
We
so
love our
I'm in the
Armenians.
district.
We love the Armenians. Let's go.
We love the Armenians. I'm I'm in the district actively, already. I know a lot of people in Burbank. I see all the issues. I pay a boatload of taxes in this district. I see how my money gets spent. I'm upset about how it's being mismanaged. I've been to meetings at the Board of Supervisors and seeing them clear $100 million towards homelessness to convert motels, and seeing that money just evaporate and not go anywhere. And then thank God we have Bill Asaley, here as U.S. attorney, because he started arresting some of these folks. But I'm actively seeing how I'm invested into this district. I'm seeing the misery that is around me. The homelessness. Here's a great example of this. When I first got this office, so I'm on the corner of Sunset and Gardner. I'm right on the Sunset Strip, so it's a very central location, very well known. There are tourists walking here. I'm less than half a mile from the Hollywood Boulevard, right? Historic area of Hollywood. You would expect, for the price that I pay and the taxes that I pay, that this is like the best place on earth to do business. Well, within a month of me getting this office, one person started camping out directly in front of my business's door. And immediately my neighbor's like, hey, you have to get this person to move, because this will blow out within just a couple of days, and it will cover the entire block. They weren't wrong. Within 2 days, they had covered the entire block. There were almost a dozen tents all the way to Sunset. And when I tell you that these folks were right in front of my office doing drugs, a lot of them had mental health issues. There was one trans person who was a prostitute who was just during the day turning tricks on a transparent tent. And this was the end of COVID. So there's a restaurant across the street from me. So you had children eating in the restaurant while this person's turning tricks inside this transparent tent for them to watch, this trans person. So, I mean, that's absolutely unacceptable. And when you call the city, no response whatsoever, right? And like I said, I'm paying taxes out the wazoo. It's crazy. I'm seeing my money just go into taxes and none of it being reinvested into my area. On top of that, there were several situations where I was trying to expand my business and get a liquor license, for example, because I have a comedy club here. And there was one specific instance that I love to bring up. To get a liquor license in Los Angeles is not easy. It's $250,000 that you have to pay mostly up front. And it'll take you about 2 years to get it. And you have to meet with the city and go through all these inspections, and you have a hearing, and you have to pay for the entire process, right? And so I meet with this little bureaucrat downtown, and he's like on his laptop running all the numbers and doing all this stuff, and he starts laughing. So I ask him, why are you laughing? What's so funny? And he says, I've never had a small business owner here. And I'm like, well, that's weird. What kind of people are you meeting with? Well, usually lawyers representing investors, right?
Yeah.
And that, to me, subtextually just told me that the little guy is being priced out.
Yeah.
Right? The mom and pops aren't having an opportunity. I mean, what kind of family or individual has $500,000 at least, or close to that? Because yes, it's $250,000 to get the liquor license. But what they don't tell you is that you can't be selling any product. You're not licensed to sell any product until you have the license. So you need at least another $200,000 to keep paying the rent, the insurance, to have the space, because you can't get a liquor license without having the space, right? So that's like up to 2 years that you're paying to just hold the space in hopes of getting this liquor license. And there are a lot of people that try to reverse engineer it. For example, there was this Vietnamese restaurant across the street from me. Very nice lady was running it. She was selling sandwiches while she was trying to get her liquor license. And she, after trying for 2 years, wasn't able to get it. So she had to close shop. And I don't know if she moved, but somewhere else. But it's now another restaurant. It's a pizza joint. But that's a harsh reality, right? And I mean, that's how business goes. But you don't need, business is already hard. You don't need the extra hurdle of this bureaucracy that's made to effectively just corner the American dream so a small elite can have access to it. That's how I see it.
Kind of on that point, then that's maybe the question, right? I think absolutely, you want to be able to tackle this stuff in the U.S. House of Representatives. Was there a
Mhm.
conversation? Did you contemplate, running for the local, like for the state House of Representatives, or in that specific state district? Do you feel like you'd be able to do more or less, like either nationally or federally? I mean, versus statewide. Kind of what's your perspective there?
Yeah, so the part of the reason for why I chose the U.S. House of Representatives is because this is considered a safe seat, right? Strategically, Democrats consider this an ultra safe seat. It's like I said, a D plus 37 now, a seat now. So they're probably not looking at spending money here, right? They get a lot of their money through Act Blue and through all of these other fundraising platforms that they have, and they just funnel money into these different, uh, districts, and they target Republican districts, districts that have majority red, or they just want it. They want the entire state to be blue, and they're, after the redistricting, they're pretty much there. We're only going to have 2 or 3 Republican Congress people, right?
Mm.
Uh, so the idea is to run for one of these seats, these hyper blue seats, because doing so and running well, what happens is, and I'm going to use a metaphor to illustrate this. Let's say the Democrat operation is like an octopus, right? And let's look at LA County like the head of the octopus, right? The tentacles are spread out. If you attack the head, that causes all the tentacles to come in. So they're going to have to pull resources out of other battles that they're fighting, and you're going to weaken them to a sense where you can hopefully help more Republicans, get elected in other districts. So, ultimately the goal is to win this seat, and it's possible. It's happened before. I mean, you have the example of there's one in-state example, Elizabeth Wong Allers. She ran for state senate on a D plus 23 district, and she closed the gap down to 3 points. She lost by just a few hundred votes. There's another example recently. This was a reverse situation. It was in Tennessee. There was it was an R plus 23 district. This was a very disliked a Democrat that was running there. Her tape went viral. She said she hates Nashville, right? I don't know if you remember, this case happened end of last year. She closed, it was an R plus 23 district. She closed that down to 3 points as well. She barely lost, right? So even an unlikable candidate can close the gap like that. So the idea obviously is to win. It's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to take a lot of reactivating people who are on the sidelines and door knocking and meeting people. But at the same time, minimum, I get Democrats to spend all these resources in a quote unquote safe district for them. And I open up 10 other races, and I could help 10 other people get elected because they don't have, all of a sudden, instead of thinking they're going to spend $250,000 into this district, they end up spending $10 million, and they don't have money for that other race. And, candidate XYZ wins that race as a result, right? Republican candidate XYZ. So it's a multi-front warfare I'm thinking of it like a team.
Okay. And do you have a coalition like that? Do you have other candidates in these different races?
Oh yeah, we
Okay,
have other congressional candidates. We have state assembly candidates that we're working with. I have endorsements from state assembly, current state assembly electeds, state senate electeds. Most of the CRAs, all of them in my district support me. So I'm working within the current party infrastructure, and I'm also helping build out local chapters at universities so we can expand our ground game. Because the idea is we're starting to take back the state, right? This is the beginning of the war, really.
Yeah.
I anticipate within 6 to 8 years max, we'll have flipped the state red.
Okay. Well, I think that's a very, I hope you're right. I think the redistricting issue, this is really screwing stuff up a lot more than people think. And it's one of those things where, you look at it, you look at Texas, you look at just the movement for redistricting. I mean, this is going to open up, it has opened up a blue seat in Utah. Of our 4 congressional districts, one of them is now blue, and it's a plus 30 Kamala Harris district. So, you and me, we understand the same issue, and people never expect that to happen in Utah, but I think that explains kind of how pervasive it is, especially when it literally is just the government coming in and saying, nope, we're going to gerrymander it in this particular way. So I like the goal, and it's interesting as well to hear that strategy to kind of, be able to get some of these other races much more competitive than maybe they normally would be. I like that. Let's say, I'll give you 2 questions, and if you could do kind of a quick answer, because we want to get to the questions as well from the super chats, but let's say you're elected. What are kind of the 3 policies that you would implement, or the 3 reforms that are kind of your top priorities?
Of course. So one of them, so obviously Congress is responsible for the purse, right? And this is how we can enact, basically force this authoritarian Democrat state. It's been Democrat for about 60 years into good policy, right? We can tie things such as like let's talk about costs of living first, right? I've already signed a pledge that I'm going to vote against any bill that raises federal taxes. But I also I want to I'm going to work on a proposal where we tie federal funds to not only cutting regulations for local businesses, but also regulations for homeowners, as well as state taxes. For everything you can imagine, right? There in California, like this is something crazy that I've been talking about with one of my advisors. But in California, they're double dipping on gas taxes. It's actually crazy. So they're taxing on top of the federal tax, right? It's something that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Something that we can easily fix. In California, we're paying close to $5, if not more, per gallon, and it's part of the reason why everything costs more here, right? So that's one of the things that we're going to do. We're going to tie federal funds to that. We also have a serious issue with retention of police officers. Here, we've lost, the LAPD lost about 10% of its police force in the last 5 years. A lot of it is a reaction to the BLM movement, the ACAB, stuff that happened around that time, which Democrats are now disavowing. They're saying we were never part of that. No, that was part of your policy,
Yeah.
right? So there is currently no incentive for a lot of these police officers to a lot of them are retiring and they just don't have the necessary replacement. And there are a lot of people who are being trained and going through the process and not staying in the police force because it's a brutal job, right?
Yeah. Thankless.
Especially in
It's
LA.
a thankless job. Yeah.
Exactly. And home burglaries are up as a result. Response times are longer than ever. I'm door knocking a lot, and I hear a lot of stories. Places like Burbank that usually are relatively safe. You hear every block we go, at least 2 homes have been burglarized in the last month. It's not normal, right? Cars are getting burglarized. I mean, it's so ridiculous that there was even a trend that was happening here in the Fairfax district where people overnight, they would park their cars on the street and they would wake up in the next morning, all their wheels would be gone. The cars would just be sitting on cinder blocks. It's ridiculous. But the idea would be to tie federal funds or to create federal grants to replenish our police departments, create more incentives to train more police officers. And then as far as the homelessness situation goes, we need, first off, in the corruption aspect, there's been over $25 billion on the state level that's been thrown at this problem. And none of that, all of that money actually is unaccounted for. Nobody knows where it went. There's no transparency, no state audit. At the county level in LA, they spent close to $2 billion in the last 5 years, doing motel conversions, quote unquote. $115 million of that money was given to an organization called Shangri-La Industries. And the owner, the founder of that company, was later exposed for getting that money that was supposed to go to motel conversions and renting out mansions for himself, throwing lavish parties for his influencer girlfriend, traveling on private jets. He was arrested last year, but this is what our tax money is going to funding. So it would be very easy to just go through and see if any federal money had been spent in that manner, if the state had allocated any federal money that just disappeared in this homeless grift, or the bullet train as well. That's another investigation we can look at.
How many years has it been since it was announced?
Bro, it's a joke. It's been so many years. But that could be an easy way to start holding the state accountable for the corruption that's it's everywhere. We have to do that, and we have to do that on behalf of Californians, because the state and the county have just failed at being able to hold themselves accountable. To just paint the picture even further, our county controller, Kevin Mejia, far leftist, as far as you can imagine, just as far as our mayor, Karen Bass, who's a communist, by the way, was trained with Fidel Castro. She blocks every opportunity that every sort of investigation that he's tried to do as far as where the money has gone. She blocks it. She doesn't allow him to investigate because she's in bed with a lot of the NGOs that have been getting this money, right? She's in bed with LASA, which is the one of the main homeless housing organizations here. It's been proven in emails. So, we have to bring accountability to the state, and we have to also flip the way the state has been trying to correct the homelessness issue here, which is they've been focusing on building housing first, for people who aren't necessarily ready for housing. I've volunteered for the last 2 years in Skid Row. Once a week, I go there, and it's been eye-opening to see what a lot of people are experiencing. But the majority of them are either suffering with some level of addiction, or they have severe mental health issues, and they're just not ready for housing. So
this is something, not to interrupt you, but and you don't have to agree with this, because I get to do the commentary and you get to run for office, so we have maybe different angles we can take. There is really just like, the more I look into this issue, I'm like looking at these different proposed solutions, and I keep coming back to this idea that it's like, look, if there's like a significant subsect of these people who are on the street not just because they're down on their luck, but either through mental deficiency or genuine like derangement, psychosis, whatever it may be, drug induced, whatever it may be. There's a certain subsect of the population that I think literally just like needs to be in something equivalent to a jail. And obviously, like, you want to take care of them, but there will always be a subsect of the population that cannot be responded to in a way that every other kind of functional person can be responded to, where you can give them a place to live and you can give them resources. At a certain point, you literally just need people in a controlled environment, and that's where they have to stay, because I do believe there is a population that cannot be rehabilitated, that cannot be reintroduced, and it is oftentimes not any fault of their own. What we have to dedicate ourselves to is truly reducing the ability for more and more people to be put into those positions. We have to reduce the accessibility of drugs, opiates, all of these things that will induce that psychosis, that will push them to the point of no return. But there is some portion of the population, I think people would be insane to deny it, that nowadays we see a lot more of, because there is far more welfare subsistence. I don't know, back in like Athens, back in Greece, I think all these people find their way to one place, or they die like in random acts of violence or something to that degree. We're a much more humane society, but I think that there is some aspect of the answer here that just literally has to be putting them in a controlled environment for good.
Well, what I can say to that is that there was actually a study that came out end of last year that showed that for the first time since I think the 1970s, there was actually a majority of people who thought that reopening mental institutions, like the old, I'm not talking about the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest type of mental institution, but just like a place where you can house all these folks.
Yeah.
I guess the majority of people supported that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the opposition, it's rhetorical. It's because they watch movies and it's like, oh, this is the loony bin. And it's like, no, it's like, we just want them kind of safe.
Yeah. Yeah, you would treat, of course, it would be like a humane, thing. The reality is, and you kind of touched on this, there are a lot of people who either as a result of, a mental illness or a specific drug addiction, or sometimes they just don't want to live in a place. I mean, they're genuinely people who have all their stuff together. They just want to live off the grid.
Yeah.
And they want to do it on the streets. But I think that it's really not conducive to I would say, it's not conducive to having an organized society, having such a large population of people just living on the street in squalor.
Yeah.
Right. It's not something that we should accept, and it's something that we should honestly look for a solution that's obviously, like we were talking about, humane, but that that doesn't perpetuate that problem. Because right now, a lot of politicians have actually they've done the opposite. They've actually figured out a way to monetize it,
Yeah.
which is actually even more inhumane, right?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I mean,
So,
it's you have this like permanent like underclass, and I don't know, dude. And you get to it at some point where you realize, these people, oh, actually, they don't have a place of residence, but I'm sure they figure out a way to get him to vote. I'm sure they're
oh
smart
yeah,
enough to get him voting. If they can get him there awake to the
100%.
polls, what's going to stop anybody from filling out their ballot? But well, hey,
No, and
we
in a state like,
mhm,
just to your point, in a state like California, where when you go to vote, they don't check your ID.
mhm,
They don't even wanna ask you your name.
yeah,
They just ask you your address, and then they have you sign on the line. They don't verify your signature, and then they give you an empty ballot, and you go, you fill it out. That's it.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yep.
The largest California is the largest state, right? Is New York larger than California? I have to think as far as population goes.
Oh,
Uh,
population wise, I think it's yeah, California. I think is takes the
yeah,
cake.
the largest, arguably the most influential state in the union with the most congressional seats, and there's no control whatsoever on who's voting.
Yeah,
Crazy.
crazy stuff. Well, hey, that's awesome. We'd love to obviously see some proposals to clean that up too. That's a big issue all around the country. But let's jump into
Yeah,
some of the questions that people got. I
let's
appreciate you
do it.
seriously for your time. It's been a fun
Of course.
conversation.
This is
Um,
great. I love it.
and let's start. Let's see. We had a super chat at the beginning when you were mentioning marriage. House of Israel 77 LDS user. Let's go says regarding marriage given to us by God by the covenant. Perfect. All exclamation or all caps. So well done. You had a good reply for Mr. House of Israel. Thank you for the 5. And now we've got a contentious one. And this one, I'm just going to let you take it because, like I said, I don't know enough about your commentary videos from before. But there's a question for Def Noodles from Mega ED Productions. Says, what was up with the daily uploading 1-minute garbage videos, suicide baiting on Reddit, deleting everything, and 2 months? I'll let you take that.
Well, I mean, I was at one point I was making entertainment videos. That's really what that was, and I took a step away. I reflected a lot. I thought about, I thought about what I wanted to do with what the gifts that God has given me, and it just pushed me in this direction. Honestly, I think that it's very easy, especially in this business, to kind of lose sight of things and kind of lose sight of yourself as well as you lose sight of things. Uh, and I think that happened to me definitely at one point. I think especially around 2022. It was by far one of the most difficult times of my life, and it really forced some reflection. And I was pretty close to God then, but it just like it kind of set a fork in the road. It was like, what are you gonna do? You have this. Are you just gonna keep walking this, easy path that's basically a money printer, and you can just keep selling your soul and your integrity so you can keep doing this stuff? Or are you gonna walk the straight and narrow where you actually have some sort of positive impact? And I had to make a choice, and honestly, it wasn't an easy choice. I lost a lot making those choices, and I'm still losing. Obviously, it's always the kind of thing when you make decisions to stand on principle, you're always going to lose something, right? And it could be money, it could be material, any sort of material things, could be relationships, but it's not easy. That's why Jesus is that specific when he says that he doesn't say specifically that he didn't come here to bring peace, that he came here to divide, parents and children, that
Yep.
they're gonna,
Came not to bring peace
that,
but a sword. Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, it's not easy. I had to make a choice.
Mhm.
That's what that choice was, and I'm actually happier than ever that I made that choice, because some of the darkest moments of my life were, moments where I was effectively doing things just for the views
Mhm.
and things just to satiate the algorithm. I have never felt as miserable as I was in those moments. Though, and it's ironic because that's the most money I've ever made in my entire life.
Mhm.
It's almost like And you actively feel your soul like leaving you every time you upload that kind of garbage, right?
Yeah.
You're like, you make it and you're like, you feel empty afterwards. You publish it, you see all that engagement, you see that money in your bank account. It means absolutely nothing because you're selling yourself.
Yeah.
So
No, I can definitely, I resonate with that a little bit. There's plenty of stuff I said. I had the, benefit of having a 2-year religious mission, which allowed me a lot of time to reflect. And I would think about stuff that, we even had stupid bits. Like one of the bits I did before the mission is, Suckle Gang, which was just like this tongue in cheek kind of reference to, breast milk and like the health benefits. But, I look back and I'm like, although funny and although the, kind of the scientific points we made totally true still, I came back and I'm like, this really isn't the way I should be composing myself and, the way I should be presenting myself publicly. I look at kind of the way I was speaking, even if it wasn't, foul language, my intent and all of that, I absolutely reflected a lot more on it than I had before. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity that those 2 years gave me to kind of reflect on it. And yeah, to come out with things that I wanted to change. I don't think you should live your life with a ton of regret, but you're stupid if you just forget everything and don't allow it to inspire some changes. So I think that's a really reasonable answer. And it, like you said, if we're looking, and I don't know enough about your background, right, to really make a lot of huge character judgments, but certainly this YouTube career is lucrative. And the kind of content within the commentary and satirical commentary community that, was really the meta at that time, super lucrative. And politics, especially starting off, especially in races where, you're really fighting, it's not as lucrative. And so I suppose then just one more question in that regard, building off of it, do you see politics being the thing that you continue doing for the rest of the foreseeable future? If things don't go your way in this election, what do you think you're going to do? Are you going to try and campaign again at a different level, or what do you see happening?
Now I'm in it for, I honestly, I don't see any other trajectory other than the trajectory that I'm on. And we're actually building a community. Like I said, it slowly grows. We're always adding 1 or 2 people. We got pretty much a dozen people now. That it's a pretty tight knit group, and we're pretty intent on bringing the Republican Party in California back to its roots, back to its principles. And obviously, I'm in this race to win. If I don't, then for whatever reason, we still have a plan afterwards. We're building an organization. We're actually building several organizations. We're building grassroots organizations for young men, young America First men. We're building chapters within different universities around my district. So the idea isn't just it's not just in the short term about this race. It's lasting impact, right? It's how we can turn the state red. Like I said, it's going to take about 6 to 8 years to do that. We're on like a George W. Bush, Karl Rove type plan, when they flipped Texas. So we have a very clear strategy on how we want to do that. We believe that California California has been the cultural center for the world. And ultimately, if you want to defeat wokeness and this sort of ideology, you have to go to where it started, which is San Francisco, it's LA. It's the 2 cities that have perpetuated it the most. This is not just a political war, it's also a cultural war. I have this comedy club where we do these shows, and we just did a show this past week, and it was all conservative comedians. They're all right-wing comedians from all backgrounds, right? And that's something that you don't get in Los Angeles. In fact, here's a little anecdote. The booker from the Comedy Store up until a few months ago was this white lesbian, and she would specifically not book white men. In fact, one of the most famous stories that I heard from several comedians was how, Matt Rife, one of the biggest comedians in the world at one point, I don't know if he's as popular as he used to be a couple of years ago, but at the height of his popularity, she refused to book him on a show because she looked at the lineup and she said, yeah, we've had too many white men here this week. that sort of discrimination shouldn't be accepted.
Yeah.
Period. That's clear discrimination. Who cares? He's the most popular comedian in the world. How are you going to turn him down just because of his race,
Yeah.
because of his skin color? So, we did a show here. A lot of people, funny enough, there was a lot of pushback because we purposely pushed the boundaries. We named the show Whites Only. Okay. So
Let's go.
it was meant
Let's
to be.
go. That's
It was
funny in and
meant to
of
be
itself. That's
provocative.
good.
Yeah, it was meant to be provocative, but we had people who work and perform at the Groundlings, people who work and perform at different comedy institutions here in Los Angeles who literally got threatened that they would never work in this town again for merely being put on a show. And by the way, the show is named Whites Only, but we had people of different racial and ethnic backgrounds on it as well. It was just supposed to be a joke, right? It was like a whites only and a black guy and a woman with an actual vagina and that kind of stuff. Like, so so this war is like a multi-front war. It's not just the politics side, it's also the cultural side. Ideally, I'd love it if we went back to a time where Hollywood had those sort of like John Hughes movies, the stuff that I grew up watching, Home Alone. Like, you don't see Hollywood make that content anymore, and there's a reason why. They've sold themselves to become Marxist propagandists, and you have the Netflix buying out Time Warner. Netflix is just propaganda.
Yeah.
So we have to, we're in the heart of it. We're in the belly of the beast, and this is part of the mission. It's to push back politically and push back culturally so we can take it back.
Absolutely. Well, hey, perfect. Appreciate the answer there. And thank you as well, Mr. Mega Ed Productions, for the super chat. The question, Aerodynamic 11, he says, as if I needed another reason to mog on Elizabeth B. Def is our guy. Got to meet him when he hosted Sam Tripoli. Keep up the great work, Kai. The IRVM. I don't know, the IRVM. I don't know if that's some kind of inside joke that you or I are supposed to get, but who's Elizabeth B, by the way?
That's Elizabeth Barkle-Hanna, the LA GOP.
There we go.
Jewish liaison. But that's crazy. That show with Sam Tripoli was a while ago. Hey, thanks for coming. That was a great show. That was one of the shows that we did here. In fact, Sam at the time mentioned that so post-pandemic, a lot of comedy venues in LA closed, which meant that a lot of these like edgier shows where you could just go up and say anything ended up, unfortunately not having a home anymore. And Sam said that he's obviously has a weekly show at the Comedy Store, so he's fine, but he did a more edgy show at a smaller venue. And he mentioned that, that venue closed, so he was unfortunately not able to do that show anymore. I'd love to have him do it over here. I'm going to reach out, see what he's been up to, but yeah, I love Sam. Sam's great.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, hey, that's cool. You got a guy that saw it in real life, in IRL. And let's see, we've got hold on. Let's jump over here. We had another super chat by Cradley, who says, you will be only one voice in Congress. You are optimistic but unlikely to achieve goals. If you don't get rid of activist judges and liberal AGs, nothing will change. No repercussions, no change in crime. I don't know if you want to say anything to that.
No, I think they definitely have a point. This is more of a systemic issue. It's a larger issue that one person, supposedly can't affect. But this is the thing with Congress, I think, and like I mentioned, the race itself, I can help a whole other host of people get elected. It's about building an infrastructure as well. It's about bringing more people who are on the sidelines, activating them. I've been going to churches every weekend. This past weekend, I went to an Armenian church, and a lot of the times people, it sounds kind of crazy to say this, but they thank me for coming out, and you'd be surprised, right? A lot of churches don't want to mix politics and faith, but these churches have felt sidelined for the last decade and a half. And people forget, California looks super blue on the map, but California in 2008 passed Proposition 8, which was a ban on gay marriage.
Yeah.
Before gay marriage became the law of the land.
LDS Church in the trenches there fighting that battle.
Yep. And that demographic is still largely in California. What happened is they got disillusioned. They gave up. They saw that there weren't the Republicans that were fighting for them were no longer there. They didn't stand for those principles. So this is yes, it's about winning a seat in Congress and affecting change there, but it's also about influencing California so we can take the state back,
Mm.
right? It's a multi-pronged war, like I was mentioning. And look, when I'm in Congress, it's and this is something I've discussed with some of my advisors. There are a few different things that I can do that I can just by doing them. I'd be doing something that would be radically different than anything that's ever been done in Congress.
Yeah.
But have you ever thought about a congressman doing a 24-hour live stream, just walking around with a camera 24/7?
Dude, that would go hard. That's genuinely a good idea. Like interviewing people like as a congressman, that would go hard as a congressional candidate. I'd be in favor
Exactly.
of that. I think
The
admittedly
level.
a lot of like this like you know you have this girl. What is her last name? It's like this unpronounceable last name. She's within kind of the Zoran sphere. I forget where she's running. Her
Yeah.
first name's Kat. And it's like some of the streamer politicians, they get on my nerves. But a 24-hour stream, or at least like an IRL, like talking to actual voters stream,
Yep.
would go hard. And it would subject you to a lot of fire and a lot of criticism. But I think that
Mhm.
would actually go pretty hard.
Yeah, well, the idea is to bring an unprecedented level of transparency to what Congress is like,
Uh-huh.
right? Most of the stuff in Congress happens behind closed doors. We only see really a fraction of what is leading the decisions that are made in Congress and on Capitol Hill, to unfold. So why not? Why not just reveal that to the public?
Yeah.
Why not? There's a guy, actually, part of the inspiration for this idea is, I think his name's Phineas. He's in the European Parliament, in the European Union, and he does something similar. He will literally live stream himself during votes,
Base.
and he will expose the entire system. And we talk about draining the swamp. What better way than knowing who all the swamp creatures are,
Yeah.
than how the system is operating?
No, I agree. I think there's like a big part of it is just you need the transparency to the process because there's plenty of people who don't know. Like right now, we've got the Utah legislative session right now, and you've got a bunch of these bills that are passing, and there's a ton that are really like interesting and relevant. There's one right now that's about kratom. It's about like the OH7 extracts, which is literally just like opiates. It's like these legal opiates that you can get at smoke shops. You can get them all over.
Highly addictive.
Yeah, highly addictive, like crazy addictive.
Yeah.
And this is something that was, mentioned to me by a buddy of mine, but I had no idea that this was actually a bill being voted on right now. And so I think what you need is ease of access for the political process. So I'm definitely in favor of that. I think that's great. And let's see, let's move on with the super chats. Love that idea. And maybe I'll go sit into the legislative session and cover it myself. I'll put on the meta glasses. Maybe that's content for me. But let's see. Cradley also, he earlier sent another super chat. Thank you, Cradley. He says, to get any movement in Cali politics as a GOP is going to require some major changes. What do you think are the biggest levers people need to be aware of to move the needle?
In county politics?
Or just in the state, yeah. Whatever level you feel to take it to. Mm-hmm.
I would say know who your representatives are. Most people don't know who their assembly district representatives are. They don't know who their state senators are. They don't know that they have an assembly district.
Yeah.
They don't know who's in their central committee. They don't know that when they're voting in elections, they're voting for the members that are going to be a part of that assembly district. Those are publicly elected offices. There's 7 spots. So try to find out who those individuals are because they make decisions on how the party is run. They're part of the vote, right? I think familiarizing yourself with the process, and unfortunately with California, the bureaucracy is gargantuan, right? There's so many offices. Like I said, just in LA County alone, there are over 2,000 seats that are open, that are up for election in the next election. It's a huge amount of people who are going to be elected in office, and a lot of these races go up uncontested. You'd be surprised. Sometimes it's just one person on the ballot.
Yeah.
There are races that, and you don't necessarily even need a lot of money. Some of these races, I know, for example, some folks who ran for local seats and spent a couple $100s and got elected into office.
Literally.
Right?
Yeah. I'll say at the precinct level, just to kind of add my 2 cents in here, Utah's a little different. It's not as populous, but the precinct is the most basic level of political organization that a state has. And the precincts, Utah's interesting because we have a caucus. We have got a caucus within the party that convenes and it's not, the direct primary that most states have, like California has, which actually makes it in some ways easier and in some ways more difficult. It's like the difference between a direct democracy and a representative democracy or republic. And at the precinct level, you're 100% right. It's like we look, and the Republican Party, the GOP looks and compiles, okay, do we even have people running in these races? Who can we get? And you'll often find that your state GOP will throw you resources in order to have somebody running for that seat. And yeah, I think that's huge. And once you're there, you're a part of the state central committee, or you're part of the county committee, right? And you will go to those meetings and you'll actually have a voice in the direction the party takes going forward. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a big thing that I'm trying to get people more involved in, is actually running for those seats that, like you said, go uncontested or they're just open, right?
Yeah. And all politics is local at the end. Yes, the national level is what everybody's looking at. That's what generates the headlines and everything. But at the local level, that's really where you have the most impact if you want to really change and affect your community.
100%. 100%. Well, awesome. Let's see if we've got any more super chats here. We got a $10 super chat from Meow Groiper. We love you, Meow Groiper. Big meow to you. He says meow. Predictable. Love this guy. We got to play Rainbow Six Siege again sometime, big dog. So he's a good friend of the show. And let's see. I think that was it. I think we're all caught up. Let me double check to see if any came through Power Chat. I think we're all caught up. Asian Mormon had some huge super chats. Want to give a big thank you as well to you. I'm not sure if they were directed to you, their message list, but nonetheless, we'll announce them here. Thank you for the $88 and the $12. Huge super chat, and we'll put a W in the chat for our boy Asian Mormon. I got a J-Dogs because he sent over J-Dogs money. If you're ever in Utah, you got to try them. They're these amazing hot dogs. So
J-Dogs?
J-Dogs, so good, so good. So
what's good about them? Like, what do they come like loaded or?
So they have like a specific selection of items that you can put on. It's almost like a Subway just for hot dogs. What I like about it is that there's two menu items. I mean, there's fries as well, but it's like you either get a beef hot dog or a Polish hot dog, and you can load up banana peppers, pickles. They've got a sauce that's really good, jalapenos, sauerkraut, and I think one other thing, and you can choose which of those toppings you want on it, and that's it. Yeah. And it's like $6. They're big. It's just easy. I don't know. I'm a big fan of these places, these establishments that just have simple menus. I mean, California, you're the kings of In-N-Out. We have them in Utah too. People don't know that, but
you have In-N-Out in Utah?
Yeah, nobody knows that. Isn't that crazy?
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah, I love In-N-Out. I love it.
So anyway,
those hot dogs, by the way, sound terrific. Now I'm hungry now. I may just go out and we have Pink's over here. You ever go to Pink's?
I don't think so. And I go to California all the time. Like whenever I'm there, I'm in the district that you'd be representing. It's like I'm always either in Hollywood or I'm kind of Beverly Hills. I've been in Culver City a couple of times, and I've spoken, at UCLA, UC Irvine. Is UC Irvine within your bounds?
It's about an hour from here, an hour and a half.
Yeah. But anyway, love that place. But you're right. You spend time walking around the streets and you realize there's a lot that needs to change. So
yeah, I go to Santa Clarita a lot, and I joke around because Santa Clarita feels like America. So I tell them I'm happy to be visiting you over from Africa because
literally
often feels like Africa.
That's so funny, dude. I just looked up Pink's. This place looks amazing. Yeah. Sorry to. I'm hungry now too. I looked it up. Couldn't help myself. These hot dogs look great.
They're great. Yeah.
Real. That's what's up.
Loaded hot dogs.
Seriously, that's such a goated thing, man. Hot dogs are such a staple American food. Love it.
100%.
Anyway, well, hey, I think we're all cut up there with the super chats and everything. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say. Of course, plug your campaign where people can find out more about you. And of course, if people want to support you, where they can do that too.
Of course. Well, first off, thank you so much, Kai, for having me on, and thank you so much to the chat, for all you guys for generously sharing your time with me and hearing me talk about some of the issues that we have going on here in California. I always have to kind of gauge because there's so much of the stuff that happens in California ends up becoming national news. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if people are sick of hearing about all the issues going on in LA and California. So I'm just grateful that we're able to get the word out and people can start understanding what's happening here, because the goal is to contain this here. Look, if Newsom becomes president, which is unfortunately a very real possibility, that could become our state could become the whole country.
Yeah.
So it's good that we're aware of this right now so that we can avoid that from happening. Now, if you want to know more about my campaign, one of the easiest ways is you can just go to my website. It's Dennis for Change, DennisForChange.com. And there's information there on how to donate, on how to volunteer if you want to. There's some policy talking points that I have on there. Some of the stuff that I shared about, cost of living, public safety, and homelessness. And if you want to get in touch with me, that's also a good way to do it. If you want to, get in touch with me on social media, you can do it through my usual social media accounts, which are Def Noodles, DEFNOODLES, or my congressional campaign accounts, which are also Dennis for Change. And yeah, thank you so much, Kai. I really appreciate you.
Of course, Dennis. Great to have a better sense of who you are, meet you more formally, and thanks for coming and talking to us. We appreciate you. Have a good one, man.
Thank you so much, everybody.
God bless.
All right, take care.